Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to talk about uniforms and the idea of a uniform guide for Marvel Future Fight. Because in case you missed it, for the first time ever, the anniversary is giving away a 50% discount on uniforms. Now this usually only comes around during Black Friday, so this is huge to get it essentially 6 months earlier, and it's especially huge because so many uniforms recently have completely transformed these characters. So there's just so many hot uniforms. So I understand the impulse, or the thought process of players being like, man, I can't decide which one of these uniforms I like more. If Cynicalex or another content creator could make a uniform guide, then I would know which uniform is better or more worthwhile to buy than the other. And I can't show you the uniform sale because I've purchased every uniform, but besides the holiday ones. But what I want to do is basically answer the question of why I'm not really making a uniform buying guide. And that's not to say that uniform buying guides aren't good, and I may make one later on this year anyways. But for now, at this point in time, I don't really see the point in doing one specifically to say these uniforms are good, these uniforms are bad. Because, well, for starters, I cover every uniform when it comes out. I buy every uniform and I make videos on it, so that information exists. For two, as I already mentioned in the video, so many uniforms this year are complete must-haves if you want to play with the character. And that's really what it comes down to. Well, it comes down to two things, but one of the really important things is if you want to play with the character. If you don't want to play with the character, there are very few uniforms you need to buy in the game. Very few. And there are there's actually more characters than ever that are very good without a uniform. So you got Moonstone, you've got characters coming out to native tier 3, Sentry, Null, Mephisto, right? You've got transcended characters. So there's quite a few, Beta Ray Bill, etc. There's quite a few characters that don't even need uniforms. But really it comes down to whether you're going to be playing with the character. And there's tons of ways that you can utilize this example, but let's just take one example off the top. If you really don't care about ABX, there's an argument to be made that you just don't need to buy Moon Knight's uniform. Now, is Moon Knight's uniform great? Yes, it is. Is he a great character? Yes, he is. But if you're not going to play ABX at all, like if you're going to play ABX seriously, you absolutely must have this uniform. But if you're not, you can go through the rest of the content in the game without Moon Knight. Can you do it with Moon Knight? Sure. Do you need Moon Knight? No. There is no one character that you need their uniform, and arguably the only character that you need to be able to get through all the content in the game, especially when it comes to PvP, is Sentry. And Sentry doesn't even have a uniform, right? We used to have this conversation before where really the only uniform you needed to buy was Jean Grey's because she was the Sentry of PvP. But that's not the case anymore. So, it's kind of a boring, unsexy answer, but really I can't make a uniform list because it really depends on two things. And I've already covered the first one, which is if you're going to play with the character. The second thing is if you have the character tier 3 or transcended, or you're in the process of tier 3ing them or transcending them. For example, a friend of mine, Honored, he bought Luke Cage's uniform. It's a great uniform, looks awesome, performs well, but he has Luke Cage at level 70 unawakened, untranscended. Luke Cage is not, I don't think Luke Cage is really going to be able to do that much content for you untranscended, unawakened. He's certainly not going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Sentry and these other big dogs in PvP, which is where his main value comes from. Now, of course, if you're a brand new player or you're a returning player who's basically brand new, there are definitely must-have uniforms. But again, it really depends on who you have, who you're going to build up, and who you have fun playing. Like, I could definitely say Rogue is a must-have uniform. But if you have her at 1 star, don't buy her uniform. Sure, the 50% off is really attractive right now, but in a month it'll be 40% off. So it's really only a difference of 10% of the crystals, which is like 150 crystals. 150 crystals can add up, but you're going to be in one of two camps as far as spending those 150 crystals or saving those 150 crystals, right? Because either you are very low spender / free to play and you need to value your crystals very carefully, in which case I would say buying the uniform now to save 150 crystals on a character that you're not going to be able to max out for the next 2 or 3 months anyways, probably not a good investment overall. Or you have tons of crystals, you spend money on the game and it doesn't matter, so the 150 crystals now versus like saving it versus not saving it doesn't really matter either, right? So it really just comes down to who are you using regularly, or who are you about to be using regularly, right? Like if you just use the tier 3 selector on Iron Man, by all means, pick up his newest uniform, absolutely. But the great thing about this game is we've reached a point, and the devs have reached a point where they're just pumping out so many good uniforms that there's just no point. It makes more sense to go and look at the tier list. It makes way more sense to go and look at the tier list and look at the characters on the tier list who are in True Gods or Godlight and say, okay, these are the characters I want to use, or these are the characters that I am using. These are the uniforms I need to get. Right? That makes perfect sense. But me saying, like, giving you a uniform buying guide kind of just doesn't make sense. There's tons of good uniforms. Like, this uniform is great. But if you don't have tier 3 Odin, he's so expensive. Don't buy it, because it's just going to be, you're buying rims for a car that you can't drive. Right? Until the engine is in the car, there's no point in buying fancy rims or buying a new fancy leather interior. There's just no point, because you're not driving the car, right? The car's not doing anything for you. It's sitting in the garage. And if the car can hit the road, you can take you places, etc. Okay, buy the seats, buy the new fender, whatever. You get what I'm saying? So again, there are some uniforms that will work at tier 2 very well, that you don't necessarily need to go all the way with these characters, but every uniform is good. Your crystals are limited. So you want to be making these decisions, I think, primarily for characters that are going to be able to go all the way. So tier 3 Transcended. But of course, there are some characters that are amazing at tier 2, untranscended. You got your Deadpool, your Holiday Lady Deadpool. Whenever this one comes around, if you don't have it, but you have Deadpool tier 2, I would say it's already a must-buy pickup at tier 2. Another one that's almost pretty much a must-buy at tier 2 is Sharon Rodgers with this one here. But those are very limited, right? There's just a few select characters. Like, even at tier 2, I wouldn't buy this until he's tier 3, because he really doesn't reach his potential until tier 3. Most characters nowadays don't reach their potential at all until tier 3, so it doesn't really make a difference. And then you can sort of fall into the trap with some characters where, like Hulk, you got to be really careful, because it's only at tier 3 and it's only for PvP essentially, right? And right now, I would say, if anything, I should make like a not buy list for uniforms. I would probably say stay away from Hulk's Immortal uniform. I have this one equipped because I'm using him as a leadership for World Boss Legend. But yeah, I would say, probably for now, stay away from Hulk's uniform. Stay away from maybe Black Widow's uniform, because they're just not performing well right now in the game for like end game content. But if you're not using them for end game content, they can still work. But yeah, there are still some characters at tier 2 that you can farm up fairly easily now, especially since characters have gotten reduced costs, that makes sense to purchase their uniforms, even though you technically can't take them all the way. The big one, the biggie is Colossus Phoenix 5, right? He basically just makes any PvP character tankier, and you can bring him into other content, not World Boss Legend, not DRX, but if you're dying in GBR, if you're dying in regular World Boss Ultimate, you can slap him on the team and he's going to reduce your damage. He's going to reduce your incoming damage by 50%. He's great against Quicksilver World Boss if you're trying to beat that, because Quicksilver does tons of damage. So does Cable, right? So does Thanos. So he has a lot of use for basically all game modes. If you're dying in the story mode and you want to farm the fragments, you can't bring him into the ultimate mode, but the other mode, for example, you have that option. But there are very, very few characters like Colossus that are going to fit that role for you. This is another one. Taskmaster. It basically just comes down to characters that have the passive ability. And I've made a video with a must-buy list, and this is basically what it's always the conclusion I come to, right? That it's the passives that you want, or it's the uniforms that transform the character's leadership into something that's even more valuable. The biggie being Enchantress's leadership being enhanced by her summer uniform, which costs real money, it costs real money. And then White Fox's uniform, which also it actually doesn't enhance her leadership. It enhances her passive, her uniform passive. But this one also costs money. But yeah, I would basically say Enchantress's money uniform, White Fox's money uniform, Colossus uniform, and Taskmaster's uniform. Those are probably the only 4 uniforms that are, strong candidates for must-buys for basically every account, assuming you can spend real money on the game, right? There may be a couple of other ones like Ebony's uniform because of that passive buff to universal types, which is almost only for PvP, or let's say Spider-Man Miles Morales if you love Carnage. But again, that's on an individual basis, player by player. If you love Carnage, you want to run through some Proxima or some other content, best leadership in the game for Carnage, right there. Even better than Null's leadership, right? So, and way cheaper than Null, all right? 3,000 CCF versus 1,000 crystals, you know what I'm saying? And then you'd have uniforms that you're going to trade in for different rewards, right? So you're buying Hela's uniform because you want to get the CTP of energy from the Thor Ragnarok legendary battle. You want to get it to heroics, you can do that. or you're getting Killmonger's uniform. Again, that's going to be on a player-by-player basis. I would honestly recommend those uniforms. This one you can get the CTP selector from the Ant-Man Legendary Battle, so you can pick up a Rage or pick up an Energy. But that's going to have an additional crystal cost associated with it because it's 750, or it's actually a little bit less right now. It's 675 for this uniform, and then it's going to be 2,500 for the Legendary Battles. Keep in mind the Legendary Battles are never discounted, so you might as well purchase the Legendary Battles when the bonus mission is on for the crystal spending event. But again, that depends on you as a player, right? If you're not interested in doing that just to get some CTPs and you would rather get more uniforms, like some players would just enjoy the game better that way. Rather than getting one CTP for 2,500 crystals, they can turn that 2,500 crystals into 3 uniforms. They would rather just have 3 up-to-date uniforms. Let's say for the defenders, Iron Fist, Daredevil, and Luke Cage. That's just more interesting to them. They'll do lower content, right? They'll beat the game at a slower pace, but they play with the exact characters they want to play with. Instead of having a CTP for 1, they've got a uniform for 3, right? So again, I just can't really justify making a list and then saying or trying to say that one uniform is better than another. There's just so many good uniforms, and I honestly think that this is a good problem to have, and this is the direction the game should be going in. And I'm excited because we got 2 more uniforms fresh in the oven about to be taken out. They're cooking up right now for Vision and Wanda. So yeah, again, and even then, making a uniform buy list or whatever, it might be invalidated, or whatever. My top 10 list might be might be changing in a few days anyways, with those 2 coming down the pipeline. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Essentially, my advice boils down to, just to recap really quickly, check out a tier list. It doesn't have to be mine. Check out a tier list, and then of the characters that are high on the tier list that you want to use, buy their uniforms. Additionally, consider the fact that the character should be, as close to max rank as possible, whether that's tier 3 or transcended. Consider how much you're going to play with the character in different game modes, and consider whether you enjoy playing with the character or not. If you're saying yes to all of these things, then the uniform is basically a must buy. If you're not sure, maybe rethink it. It's only a difference of 10% on the crystal cost. It's not the end of the world if you don't get every single uniform you need. Don't panic. You can save your crystals, right? There's always going to be new uniforms coming. Shang-Chi's going to be getting a uniform. We're probably going to get uniforms for the Eternals. Spider-Man's going to get a uniform, right? There's more cool stuff coming. So don't feel too much FOMO. I know it's easy for me to say because I have all the uniforms, but yeah, try not to feel too much FOMO about it, fear of missing out, because you'll have fun regardless. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.